Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the May 10th, 2022 Board of Selectmen meeting. Mr. Slavin, may I have a motion, please, to appoint a clerk pro tem?
Okay, since our clerk is no longer with us, we'll have to have a motion to make Tricia our pro tem clerk to start forward as of today.
May I have that motion so that her full name is in the motion, please?
Sorry, kids. Make a motion to make Tricia Words pro tem clerk today.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion, please?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? I will go for a roll call vote then. Mr. Slavin?
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick?
Yes.
Mr. Bessie?
Yes.
Ms. Wertz?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 500, you are the clerk pro tem, Ms. Wertz. May I have a roll call, Ms. Wertz, please?
So the roll call is all five of us are here. Jared, would you go? Yes.
Yep, I'm here.
Ron?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Judith?
Yes.
And myself.
And also present is?
Mr. Bowen, would you say hi? Good enough.
As well as?
Oh, Mr. Sullivan, I didn't see you sneak in at the bottom, and I don't know if we should say yes to Mr. Ruiz as well.
No.
No.
No, sorry, Steve.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to have a pledge of allegiance. Let's see, Mr. Sullivan, I think you're on deck today. You're muted.
You got me last week, so
Oh,
Again.
yeah. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
States
of
of
the
the
United States of
States
America
of America.
to the republic
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
One
nation
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you.
Now, since you got me 2 weeks in a row, I'm going to give just a tip, I think, and that's probably for the people hearing at home with the delays in between all of us, that when we have the Pledge of Allegiance, we should probably have everybody else muted except the person doing it.
I think that's a good hint. Thank you. Next on the agenda would be announcements. Mr. Bessie, do you have any announcements this evening, sir?
No announcements this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, do you have any announcements, sir?
Yes, I have a couple announcements. First one is Wareham Girls Softball has a junior game this upcoming weekend, this Wednesday at 6 p.m. and a senior division game Thursday at 6 p.m. They also have a meat raffle and a bake sale on May 22nd at the Parrot in Katomet. Tickets go on sale at 3 p.m. that day. The player of the week for the junior division is Carly Cologne, and senior division is Emily Brundage. Wareham Little League has games all day Saturday and will be releasing details shortly on a family fun day. Planet Fitness starting May 16th through the 31st of August is free for all ages, for ages 14 to 19. And you can also enter to win a $5,000 scholarship. So that's good for the teens. And last is Wareham Tigers Cheer Athletics is having an open house May 17th at 6 p.m. For anyone interested in joining competition cheer. And Wareham Tigers flag football is all day Sunday, the 15th, starting at 10 a.m. at the Deacon's Fields. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I would suggest that all of you mute unless you are the person doing the speaking. Thanks. Mr. Slavin, announcements, sir?
Okay. First of all, Toby Hospital, the emergency room, will have their ribbon cutting on Monday, the 23rd at 9 o'clock in the morning. If you go by the Main Street, you can see what a wonderful job they've done with the facility. Looks as if we will have a class 1, high-end ER, which is wonderful to have. Next, we have the Lots of Bay Association. Please go to their website. Almost all the events that they usually have, like 2 years ago and earlier, are all scheduled in now, except for the fireworks, of course. And again, I would ask you, take a look there and keep them going forward. Next, we have the Cape Flyer, which starts on Memorial Day, which goes through Wareham, stops behind Main Street and then goes on to Hyannis. Goes Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That particular Cape Flyer would be when we get the commuter rail. That's would be the stop as of this point, just so you know. One other thing I'd like to do is Selectman Muniz didn't really have a chance for us to say goodbye, and I just wanted to say thank you for the 3 years that I worked with him. And that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz, do you have any announcements? You're muted. You're muted.
I have one announcement. It's always already on the town website, but I think it's fair to bring it up again, and that's the Wareham Community Resource Fair is May 12th. So in 2 days from 12 to 4 p.m. And it's at 2515 Cranberry Highway. It is sponsored by the Wareham Police, and I highly recommend everyone go and take a look.
Thank you. I have a couple of announcements. Residents' comments will be coming back on the agenda next week and following weeks. Residents' comments is a time when town residents may bring matters before the Board of Selectmen that are not on the posted agenda. Residents may also address comments or concerns to the board on items that are on the agenda, but that are not on a hearing basis. Once recognized by the chair, the individual addressing the board must state their name and their residential address prior to speaking. The time allotted to any resident will be limited to 2 minutes. Under no circumstances will any board member engage in conversation with the resident, because that would be a violation of the open meeting law. I had invited Mr. Muniz to join us this evening so that we could all say thank you to him. So I just want to also echo what Mr. Slavin said. We very much appreciate your presence on the different committees that you served. And one last and very important thing, the 2022 Serpent annual meeting is being held on May 25th at White's of Westport. There is a special honoree that happens to be Mr. Slavin. You all got invitations in your mail, and I'm hoping that we can have what I would call a Wareham table. So please do respond to the invitation. I know that Mrs. Slavin is already planning on going.
So you're trying to get us to go, Judy, or not?
Yes,
go?
I'm trying to get you to go. I would, Jeff Walker actually hoped that we could get an entire table of Wareham people. And I gave him a few names of not just the selectmen, but also the individuals who are key players in the management of the town of Wareham. Thank you. Okay, board's comments. We will go first to Mr. Slavin. You muted.
Let's see what we got here today. Basically, as far as comments, the couple issues have come up with sewer moratorium. I'm just going to ask that we see if the sewer commissioners would be considered coming before us when it's convenient, hopefully the next few weeks or so, just so we can go over exactly where they are with the sewer moratorium, have some better idea, because we provide, guidance and direction for the town. But several things came up on the planning board meeting last night, and also conservation's had issues, and there seems to be a communication disconnect exactly how, what, where on this whole issue. So I just want to see if we can get some clarity so that we all know exactly how this is going to work. It's probably going to require our town council to come up and make some answers as well. But I'm not trying to go over any committee, but I think it's starting to overlap with other committees that's causing some questions.
I will invite them, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had another thing that was interesting. I don't think people may remember, it goes back quite a few years ago now, probably 11 or 12. We had issues with our school buses and stuff, basically breaking down, needing replacement. They had no program. I think it was Frank, who was the chair of Frank Heath of the finance committee. I sat down, we worked on a possible model from an accounting standpoint, how to rotate buses out and do it at the least expensive cost of the town long term. At the time, we weren't able to put it together, but the school department has actually put something together with Mr. Sullivan's help, especially, and it's been working very well over the last couple of years now. What came up today on some of my discussions with the state areas, a lot of the municipalities that have school bus programs that are run by outside firms. Well, the outside firms are in a position now that they can virtually charge whatever they want if you want school buses. And I had more complaints than I've ever heard before of costs going up 15, 20, 30% for transportation costs, which is putting a real problem with the budgets of other municipalities. So I just want to let everybody know that the decision we made was not an easy one, but to go ahead and keep the school buses under our control and purchase has worked out in the long term, as usually what we look for, the best possible for Wareham. I'd like to thank everybody that allowed us to put this together. And I think that's it today.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie, any board comments, sir?
No comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, any board comments, sir?
Thank you, but I do not have any comments at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz, any comments?
Likewise, I do not have any comments at this time.
Thank you. Next week, you will find that board comments are consolidated with liaison and initiative reports, just so that you know that I'm trying to squash some things together. Okay. Ms. Wertz, what would be, I have nothing further than that. What would the next item on the agenda be, Ms. Wertz, please? You're muted. You probably should stay live. The others should not.
We want to go to item number 6, appointments, reappointments, and interviews. A, Serped Joint Transportation Group Representative.
Judy, I think
We
there was
need
some confusion there. Sorry to interrupt.
Go
It's
ahead.
the Joint Transportation Group Representative, which is JTPG. It's JTPG, actually. What this is it's one of the subdivisions of Serped. It's not the actual Serped commissioner or the commissioner at large, which I think we thought that may be. So this
Right.
is okay to go ahead and do.
Okay, so the current it's actually a delegate would be Alan Slavin. So representative or delegate. So I would accept a motion, Ms. Wertz.
Make a motion that we appoint Mr. Slavin as the Serped Joint Transportation Group Representative.
May I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Motion made and seconded. I will now go, any further discussion? I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin.
Abstain.
Thank you. And myself, yes, 401. Thank you. The next item, Ms. Wertz.
Next item on 6 is B, to appoint to the Redevelopment Authority 2 members.
Thank you. The resignation of Mr. Teitelbaum caused a vacancy, and each one of the 2 selectmen representatives to the WRA serve 1-year terms. I just finished a 1-year term. So, Mr. Slavin, I'm going to go to you. And let me just say that Mr. Slavin, being the oldie, not to be insulting to any of the rest of you, but Mr. Slavin has a little more actual history, not just knowledge of what we do and how we're doing it. So, Mr. Slavin, do you have any suggestions?
My suggestion would be, where we have 3 brand new selectmen, it's not a comment on the capabilities of anybody coming in new, but we already have, Mrs. Whiteside has already been in the WRA. The WRA probably may or may not get, reorganized anyways because of that Warren article. It's still sitting out with the House and Senate. So my suggestion would be at this point, a basis to reappoint Mrs. Whiteside with the experience already there. Ms. Wertz has already worked with WRA in doing things. The real reason I'm suggesting that is that both Jared and Ron, fortunately and unfortunately, have to work for a living. And they have to work, days and nights most of the time. So this is it's a lot of stress on them as it is to be selectmen. I can't thank you enough for actually stepping up to do this, knowing how much work you're gonna have to put in. And where Ms. Morris is basically retired, unemployed, or whatever classification we put it there. And this committee meets at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think at this time here.
11. Meets at 11.
Okay. It's close enough to 9 o'clock for me. I'm out here in Nevada right now, so it doesn't matter. And the bottom line is that I think that would work best until we see what happens with the warrant article.
Is that your article? Is that your motion, sir?
That would be my motion, unless either Ron or Jared have any comment on this. I'm not trying to force anything on anyone.
Okay, may I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion to appoint myself and Ms. Wertz as one-year members of the WRA? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. So you will need to be sworn in, and you will need to make some disclosures, Ms. Wertz, as well.
okay.
Excellent. And next on the agenda, Ms. Wertz, please.
The next on the agenda is item 7, licenses and permits, and I make a hearing. First of all, we are just past 7:15, so I think this is the right time to take this. Do we need to let in anybody from
Yes.
Mama Mary's?
Yes, Mary Labonte. And Mary, do you have an attorney with you?
I do not.
Thank you. Okay. I'll have them accept a motion to open the hearing, please.
So
Motion.
made.
Which one of you made the motion?
Alan.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion to open the hearing for the application for Mama Mary?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion to open the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself. Yes, the hearing is now open.
Yeah.
Ms. Labonte, do you choose to address the board? I see that you're with us. Do you have a video as well or not? It doesn't matter. I know your voice. If you don't, that's
My
fine.
son's helping me.
Okay,
I'm not good at this.
there you are.
Oh, there I am.
Okay, could you introduce yourself, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Mary Labonte, owner of Mama Mary's Italian Cafe on Main Street.
And you are looking for what?
Beer and wine license?
Okay, and it is a seasonal one, am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone here with you to speak on behalf of your application?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant? Please raise your hand. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against the application? Please raise your hand. Seeing none.
I have one comment.
1 second.
Okay,
Thank you. I'm going to go around the board and ask if you have questions of the young lady. Mr. Slavin, do you have any questions of the young lady?
No, I've been pestering Mary for probably 4 years to having a restaurant, and how restaurants work and the profitability, and having a beer and wine license adds a lot to the restaurant, not only for customers coming in, but in the profitability of it. So I'm happy to see she's finally stepped up and applied.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, any questions or comments, sir?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you very much for everything that you do for the community.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie, any questions or comments of the young lady?
No questions, just a couple of comments. I'm excited to see this application. I think that it's going to help this business grow. And I'm excited that she stepped up and applied for this application. I've many times we go to visit, and it'd just be nice to be able to sit down and have a beer or a wine with that wonderful Italian pasta that she serves. So thank you once again. I'll second what Mr. Chadwick said. Thank you for everything you do for the community. It doesn't go unnoticed, and we appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz? comments or
Mary,
questions?
yeah, nice to meet you,
Nice to meet you.
almost face to face. And as a past owner of a small business, there's just one slight thing I noticed, and that is your board of directors statement. It was not signed. I make the assumption that's okay with us because it is not okay. Then my question would be, we need to have that signed.
Yeah, the three things that Ms. Slaney forwarded to you,
Yes.
and yeah, the tips training,
Yep, that finished it.
that and signing one other piece of paper. So your motion, if there is one, would be to approve subject to receipt of those documents. Okay. I have no questions of the young lady, and so hearing no other questions, I will ask for a motion to close the hearing.
So I
So
would
may-
put, oh, go ahead, second,
Which one of you made the motion?
Ellen.
Okay,
For this meeting here, I'll try to help a little bit, but what I'll try and do is wait and let Ms. Wertz actually make the motions as clerk. I think it'll be better that way.
yeah, she's actually scripted this meeting out, so she will be fine if you don't butt in.
And I'll be fine if you do as well. I might be relieved if you do. I don't know.
Okay, so there's a
So-
motion to close the hearing with a second. Is there any further discussion about closing the hearing? Hearing
No.
none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin, this is to close the hearing.
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes. The hearing is closed. May I have a motion, please?
there's a motion. I make a motion to close the hearing.
It's already closed.
Okay,
Your motion is to grant?
to grant the license with
Yep.
the conditions met that were previously mentioned, the signatures we need, et cetera.
Okay, so this would be Mama Mary's of 219 Main Street, Wareham will be granted a seasonal common vic wine and malt beverages license under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Laws for the year 2022. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Just a question, what is the time frame of the seasonal license?
April 1st to December.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any further discussion on the motion to grant?
Also, Judy, you can modify that license for a slightly different date time too.
You can, yes. Okay, I will
Thank you.
go for a roll call vote, please. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, Wertz. Jeez. Yes. 500. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Okay. The license is granted. Mary, thank you very much. And the paperwork, after you've submitted your paperwork to Cassandra, well, Cassandra's out for a few days. And the ladies in the office know what you need to bring them, and then they can release the
I
license.
have
to
it
you.
all ready to go for tomorrow.
Okay. And gentlemen, you need to go to the office and sign the license. Okay, before she can pick it up. So Mary, I'm going to say Monday.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And I believe, we'll have to skip to something. Item
Congratulations.
8A is not on the agenda for this evening. And let's go to 8D, Ms. Wertz, please.
Yes, so under 8D, there is a statement, and I'd like to make a motion to accept the donation to the Wareham Council on Aging in the amount of $100 from Colleen Michaels Walsh in memory of Kenneth Michaels.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to accept the donation of $100? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. May I have item E, 8E, please, Ms. Wertz?
I, did you say item E?
Yeah, 8E, which would be
Yeah,
the 20,000. Yeah,
Yeah, so I make a motion to accept a donation to the Wareham Free Library Foundation gift account in the amount of $20,000 for coverage of part-time salaries from the Wareham Free Library Foundation.
thank you. So it actually should be, that there's a misprinting on there. It should be accept the donation from the Wareham Free Library Foundation to the Wareham Free Library. It's backwards there, but that's your motion, right?
Yes,
And is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Very generous gift of $20,000. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I'd just like to thank again, the Wareham Free Library Foundation. They do this every year for us. It allows us to keep the library open and to have a little more assets than we normally would have. And it's a lot of hard work, and thank you very much for what you do.
Excellent, thank you. I believe in the budget, Mr. Sullivan also put a part-timer into the library, if I recall that correctly. Do I recall that correctly, Mr. Sullivan?
Sorry, Judy, what were you talking about?
I was talking about at the town meeting budget that you put an additional half person into the library. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. So yes, the support is there. We have a motion and a second, and I will now go for a roll call vote to accept the donation. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
and myself, yes, thank you very much. Okay, I will go to 8F, which is the discussion and possible vote regarding the current practice of ratifying town employee hires. Mr. Slavin, this was at your suggestion. Could you speak to it, please?
Yeah, no problem. We have, again, a warrant article, which is the charter changes and stuff, which I think takes care of this anyways. But I think at this point here in time, I'm not sure if we have this as a policy or whatever, but the bottom line is that we have a human resources person who does more than an excellent job overall. Their job is to go through, do full checks on all the employees. They can, if they want, send a note off if we want to look at it. But you get into issues of when you give the town officials the right to go look at someone's applications, et cetera. It makes me a little nervous because I always think that we're violating, the individual's, personal information that really we shouldn't have. The bottom line is I think we should basically, at this point in time, no longer do this.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion as far as the current practice. We still have, I think, when it comes to certain employees under the charter, the Board of Selectmen has the right to review and say yes or no.
Department heads, that's correct.
Well,
May I have a second to the
department head
motion?
and the town administrator and the police chief in particular.
Right. May I have a second to the motion, please? I will second the
Second.
motion. Okay, go ahead. A motion made and seconded. I have spoken with Miss Allen England. She will be continuing to advise this board of appointments in all of the different departments, and either on a bi-weekly basis or monthly basis, whichever you would like to have. But we would no longer be ratifying, and as Mr. Slavin points out, it's something that a prior selectman chose to do. It's allowed under the charter, but not under the new charter. And I asked again of Mr. Pacheco's main person, where is our charter? It's been there for a year and a half. It's in the third reading of the Senate. So when that is passed, there will be changes, including gendered language changes to the way that we do business. Is there any further discussion on the motion to not do the ratifying any further.
I would just like to clarify, to have clarified for me. So we're talking about employees at levels under
Under
department heads. And,
That's correct.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So we will no longer be doing that 500. Swartz, I believe it's 7:30 and I believe
Yeah.
it's,
We want to head back to 7B, which is a hearing for the application of L and L Corporation DBA Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant for an alteration to the premises to allow existing all alcohol beverage license under the provisions of Charter 138 of Massachusetts General Laws of
is there a
22.
motion to open the hearing?
Motion.
Motion is, go ahead,
Motion
I-
made. Is there a second to the motion?
and I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion made to open the hearing with a second. I will go for a roll call vote, please. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes. The hearing is now open. Ms. Swiarowski, good evening. Do you have anyone with you that you would like to have let into the meeting?
Oh, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Could you introduce yourself and explain what it is that you're looking for, please?
Yeah, so my name is Bree Swakowski. I'm the owner and manager of Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant. We are just looking to extend the license to include the outdoor patio that was granted during the COVID via Governor Baker's decree. We just want to continue and extend the license to do that permanently.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant? Please raise your hand. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against the applicant? Raise your hand. Seeing none, I will go back to Mr. Slavin. Do you have any questions or comments for the young lady?
Good evening, Bree. It's nice to see you.
Nice
Say
to see
hello
you.
to hubby for me.
Yep.
Now, this is something that thankfully we're not like the city of Boston that we picked on the north end and try to hit them with a $7,500 fee in order to open up like this. This is something, again, is another requirement that's really needed considering what happened with COVID. And I expect these issues like COVID to come and go in the future, no matter what. So it's an important piece for a restaurant to be able to maximize their area that they can serve within the rules and regulations that the state provides us. So I don't see any reason why we can't do this. Number one, we should be doing this and finding other ways to make life easier as it is. Thank you. Again, thank you for everything you do. I hope people realize that we have a small restaurant that probably has some of the finest food served anywhere in not just the Southeast, but the whole New England area. I kind of wish you guys had a bigger place.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, do you have any comments or questions of the young lady? Mr. Chadwick? Must be frozen. Mr. Bessie, do you have any questions or comments for the young lady?
Just a comment. I think it's good that we, allow our restaurants to continue to try to thrive in a otherwise, heavily impacted area of livings for people with the restaurant industry being decimated during COVID. It's good to see that a lot of our small local restaurants have continued to thrive and survive, and I'm excited to see our restaurants continue to thrive, and I'm happy to see that they're going for trying to keep this going permanently.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chadwick, do you have any questions or comments of the young lady? You seem to be frozen again.
I do not have any at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And other than saying thank you, I have no questions or comments. I will.
I do have one.
Yes, I'm sorry, did I skip you?
Yep.
Sorry.
But that's okay. There are times when skipping me is to an advantage. So Bree, I haven't met you and I'm gonna, hopefully you're not, you don't feel insulted if I call you Bree because I don't even want to attempt your last name without practice. I'm looking at your submittal for this extension, and the one thing that I see is the department approvals, the fire department has not signed off on this. So that's the one thing I would call attention to.
Are you Onset Fire or are you Wareham Fire, Ms. Wizard?
We're onset fire.
Okay.
And I don't know the status of that. I know that when I've been following it, she keeps emailing him and asking what the status is. But I just know that, you know, last 2 years, they've come and inspected it and approved it for the temporary. So I don't know if that's any.
Okay, thank you. To your point, Ms. Wertz, when you make the motion, it will have to be subject to the missing sign-offs. Okay. I have no questions of you, and therefore I would accept a motion to close the hearing, please.
So I make a motion that we close the hearing on the application from Al and L Corporation DBA Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant at 3136 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, an alteration of premises for an existing annual common vic all alcoholic beverages license under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws for the year of 2022.
Is there a second
With-
motion to close? the
Well,
hearing?
with the addition that the fire department signature is in place.
We have to. Did we close the hearing?
No,
No, it's a motion to close the
It's a
hearing.
motion to close the hearing.
Is there a second to close the hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the hearing. Is there any further discussion to be brought before the board? I will go for a roll call vote to close the hearing. Mr. Slavin,
yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes. The hearing is closed. Now I'll accept your motion to approve.
so providing that it's okay, I've already read it. Let me just say ditto that I'm offering this for a vote with the condition that the fire department signature is acquired.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I think it's best we reread it back into the record correctly again.
Okay. I'm making a motion that an application from Al and L Corporation DBA Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant, 3136 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, an alteration of premises for an existing annual common vic all alcoholic beverages license under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws for the year 2022 with the provision that the signature from the fire department is acquired.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion to grant with the stipulation? I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 500. As soon as that has been signed off, Ms. Warowski, you can pick it up. Probably, I would have you call the fire department and just
Okay.
say, you're holding
Sure.
me up.
Okay.
And as soon as that has been done, you'll be able to pick the license up. And lady and gentlemen, you need to sign the license, which is in the Board of Selectmen's office. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
We will now go on to 8C, Ms. Wertz.
8C is a motion to open a discussion and possible vote to amend policy 2-7, chapter 61A, section 14, notifications.
Okay, thank you. I brought this up last week because we've learned, or I learned, that when we have a 61A notification, that currently we notify the community preservation, the town planner, the CETA director, which needs to be fixed because CETA doesn't exist, and the Wareham Land Trust. I think that you have a suggested policy which says that that when we get those notifications, we would notify from the Board of Selectmen, the town planner, the Community Preservation Committee, the Open Space Committee, Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, Conservation Commission, Wareham Fire Department, Wareham Water District, the Onset Fire Department, and the Onset Fire District. And those boards and committees shall have 30 days to respond to the Board of Selectmen with their interest. And then as a courtesy, the notification may also be forwarded to land preservation conservation organizations such as Massachusetts Audubon Society, Buzzards Bay Coalition, Wareham Land Trust, and Wildlands Trust. So the proposed policy wording is probably the second piece of paper that you have. Mr. Slavin, any questions or comments?
No, it's, again, this is a policy. It's not a requirement per se. The town has a right, I think it's up to 120 days to make a decision on a 61A conversion. Even if we were to go ahead to any of the land organizations, they're the ones that would have to come up with money to buy it and make the offer. So we can put that in there, but the bottom line is, it's out to the public anyways, but technically the way it's put together by the state on 61A, it's really the town that has the right to accept or, buy the property or basically say no.
So are you suggesting we strike the last paragraph of the as a courtesy?
Well, my question is, and maybe we ask town administrator, or maybe we ask a couple more questions. Is it necessary for the boards in town to have input? Because at the end of the day, if they're going to suggest we buy the property, they could do that on their own to the town administrator, because the town administrator, and unless I'm wrong, Mr. Bowen, is the one that would make the decision to purchase the property through town meeting.
Mr. Bowen, if you choose to answer. It's sort of convoluted question.
Oh, no, I get it, Madam Chairman. Thank you. It's all a courtesy. The statute provides 120 days, and it doesn't matter who you send the notice to when the 120 days has passed. And if you haven't exercised your option, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. The opportunity is gone. So you can really write the policy any way you want. It really is all just a matter of courtesy. And if the town decided that it wanted to exercise the option, that would be a vote of the Board of Selectmen to do so, and then calling the appropriate town meeting to obtain the funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Mrs. Slavin?
Yeah, it basically, like I say, we're putting a policy in that it really is not a requirement per se. I would think that if any of the land-based board committees and organizations, nonprofits wanted to buy it, they could contact the town and say, hey, we understand this is coming out of 61A. We have an interest. Would you consider, if we can put it together, you could basically take your right and give it to us as an option.
Well, if I may, then I suggest we get rid of the policy.
Well, my feeling on policies, it's only as good as the paper is written on, and policies aren't legal.
Right. So I'm sort of leaning to getting rid of it in its entirety. But Mr. Chadwick, how do you feel?
I agree with you on that. I don't really have much more to say than that.
Okay.
I would ask Mr. Sullivan, who's leaning back in his chair looking at the face.
Mr. Sullivan,
It really
do you
should be.
choose to comment on this? Mr. Slavin, I'm going to ask you to stop interrupting, sir. Okay? Speaking needs to come through me, as you know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Sullivan, do you choose to comment on this?
It's a policy decision, so you are the policymakers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Bessie, do you have anything to say on this? Any feelings on this one way or the other?
I think that, it's exactly that. It's a policy. I think it's just another piece of paper that we can just get rid of and just move on from it rather than trying to make some verbiage changes. I think we should just get rid of it.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz?
So I have a little bit of a different feeling about this, and I question myself on whether I might feel differently 3 or 4 or 6 weeks from now when I'm more familiar with this job. But where it really hits home to me is if we look at the initial wording, it's about letting different organizations who could be involved in buying this property, managing property, whatever has to happen for the town. And I think the only difference between the original statement and the proposed statement is, does everyone feel like they've been included? So if we have a way where we do a public notice to these groups, then it becomes a practice versus a policy. The policy says we more or less do it, but it really comes down to, do we want to optimize the opportunity of doing the most with the land by making sure that all the potential players are aware of it? And I don't know. My gut instinct is that they all should be aware of it. However, you've got a number of them aware of it already in the original wording. So it's a minor point, but it might be a point that's important to different organizations. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin, do you have a motion, sir?
Nope, I'm going to leave it to the board how they like to handle it. I'm just brought up the different points that are available on this.
Okay. Mr. Chadwick or Mr. Bessie, do you choose to make a motion?
I would make a motion that we just strike the policy and move on from it and just take a piece of paper that, at the end of the day, as has been referenced, is just a piece of paper, and it's only a policy and not a law, and unconvolute the process just a little bit.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion to dispose of the policy, I guess is the correct word? Hearing no further discussion, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
No.
and myself, yes. The motion carries 4-1-0. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda, please.
So the next item is, so we can skip because we've already done the donations.
Yep.
So we're over to,
We should be on 8B, I think. The
yes, we
review
do
of the
have to go back
liaisons.
to that. Yeah,
Yep.
so, and that's interesting because we've been provided one list and I was provided a new list earlier today. I'm assuming we all would. And so I would like to suggest that we talk about reviewing the liaison appointments and possible reassignments.
Okay, we have the list here alphabetically, you all do. Alan is currently a member of the audit committee, and we're not looking at members tonight. We're looking at liaisons. We'll be looking at members next week. But the bike path committee liaison is Alan, and he's sort of the driving force behind that. Do any of you want to replace him on that? You want to fight him on that one?
No.
Okay.
No.
How about the Board of Assessors?
I would entertain the motion of being the liaison for that.
Okay, we don't need a motion, but
Okay.
okay. Is there anybody who wants to fight him on that one? And you did get the list, although it might not be 100% accurate, of the times that these things meet.
Yes.
Okay, I gave you a calendar. I made it up
Mhm.
after I got that, because some of these meet in the middle of the day and they're not going to be convenient to people who work during the day.
If you could, I don't believe that I received a copy of the calendar, but if you could just send it to me, timing won't be an issue.
Okay. All right. Nobody wants to fight Mr. Bessie on that one? All righty. How about Board of Health? Mr. Chadwick, you had indicated you might want to do that.
Yes, I would like to be a liaison for that if you don't want to stay on that.
That's fine, go ahead. Capital planning, the liaison is Alan. Do you want to stay on that, Mr. Slavin?
It's a afternoon usually. I have no problem staying on unless someone else wants to deal with it.
Okay, thank you. We will go down to the cemetery commissioners. The liaison is Alan.
They haven't met in a long time, so
Excuse me, they met last month. They've met for the last 3 months.
well, they've never notified me that they're meeting, sorry.
But they're posted. I'll take the liaison.
Thank you.
Thank you. Community events, we can't do because that's a member. Community Preservation Committee, I would like to stay as the liaison. Is there anybody who'd like to fight me on that one? Okay,
I'd enjoy it, but Judith, I'll,
well, we can
Not do it.
both do it. Do you want to join in too?
yeah, I would be very interested in that particular
Okay.
board.
Conservation is me. Is there anybody who would like to jump on that one? Okay. Council on Aging, it's me and Alan. See, you're all too young to jump on that one. The Deacon's School Committee is up for grabs. Steering Committee.
I can jump to be the liaison for that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody want to fight him on that one?
Nope.
Okay. FinCom, it's myself and Alan. And I would urge you to go to their meetings, even if you're not the liaison. The Golf Course Advisory Committee is me, but if anybody chooses to do that differently.
I'll take that one if you want to give that one up, Judith. Excuse
Okay,
me.
that one meets Wednesdays at 5. Every other week or monthly or something like that. They're still figuring out their schedule.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Historic
Thank you.
District Commission, Alan.
I had dropped off that a while ago.
Okay, so Historic District Commission. we
I'll
have
go.
his- Okay, there are two, this Historic District
Yeah.
Commission and the Historical Commission. Do you want both of them?
I'll take them both because I know Angela is heading both of them. So it's probably how they work together.
You got it. Okay, the transportation, we did that as a delegate. The Library Board of Trustees is me. But if there were 2 of us, if anybody else wants to join in, or if anybody wants to take that, it's the 3rd Thursday of the month. And they meet sort of in the afternoon, but they sort of don't really have a fixed time.
I can take that one also.
Okay, I'll put you and me on it if that's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Marine Resources is still moribund, so we don't need anybody there. Minot Forest is up for grabs, and I think I'd like that one. Is that okay?
Yep.
Anybody? Okay. Open Space is me, and I think I'd like to stay there. Okay. Planning Board is Alan and
wanna
anybody?
I'll,
Ron?
go ahead, Tricia. What were you gonna say?
I was going to ask a question about this because I've been attending the planning board meetings for a year now. I have substantial interest in what they do and don't do. I need to just verify if I go as a liaison, then I step out of saying or doing anything as a citizen. Is that correct?
No, and that's a good point. We probably should have talked about that first. A liaison is a person who is the stepping stone between the Board of Selectmen and that particular committee. You are not a member of the committee. You are a member of the public who happens to be a sitting selectman. You should not not comment on things if you think it's appropriate. You may not sit at the table with the committee. You are a member of the audience. But if they have citizens' comments or if they have the opportunity for the public to speak, then certainly you would be able to speak. Does that?
Yeah, that one, I've been very active in already. I'm probably going to keep going no matter what. So if Ron, if you're willing to let me take that.
Okay, Alan, do you want to stay on that as well or not?
I understand what Trish is saying. It's a little bit of a landmine there because of what comes before planning, whether we like it or not, even when we basically make a statement that we'll do, we'll stay out of this or whatever that, we're a selectman 24/7. So when we talk before any board that's especially televised, all they see is a selectman there. So it's a very difficult thing to do, but at the same time, we have input. And it's important that what happens to the planning board comes back to the Board of Selectmen to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So, I had issues with the ZBA and the planning because everything else I do having conflicts. The planning board's on Monday. It's the one that Jim and I would share because there are a few times where I can't do it. The ZBA for me is a problem because there's so many things happen on a Wednesday night. But why don't we put Tricia in there and I'm as a backup? How about that?
So for
That
planning,
works.
it's you and Trish?
And make Trish the main person there.
Okay. All right. Recycling committee. We need a liaison.
Yes, we do.
I can take that.
Okay, it's the third Wednesday at 6 p.m. At least that's what I think it is. My calendars may be all wrong. Okay, so you, Ron?
Yes.
Thank you. The road commissioners need a liaison. I'll do that. Unless anybody wants that. They meet regularly. School committee was Mr. Tropiano and myself. I'd like to stay, and I know that Mr. Chadwick had evidenced interest. Is there anyone else who'd like to?
Yes, I would like to. Yes, Madam Chairman, I would like to join that.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, excellent. Okay, sewer commissioners, this is going to be a tough one, ladies and gentlemen. Because of the issues, they have just issued a moratorium. They meet the second and fourth Wednesday, I think at 6:30. Maybe it's Thursdays, I don't remember, but it's a 6:30 at night meeting.
Thursday.
Thursday.
Okay. Anybody want that one? Oh, guys. All right, it's me.
I can't do it because of members' friendliness.
Okay, yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you.
The Veterans Council is currently Alan. Is there anyone who'd like to replace him or join him? No. The Wareham Cultural Council is currently me.
Yes.
Trish?
No, I'm good.
Rotten person, okay. And the ZBA is currently Alan and
I
Trish.
appreciate it. Someone else could step up to help me because I can't make it all the time.
Trish, do you want to do that? Because zoning and planning are related.
So let me just make sure they don't meet at the
That's second
same
and fourth
time.
Wednesdays at 6:30.
And planning is
It's Mondays.
Mondays. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that.
Okay.
I'm gonna dread it, but I'll do it.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is bring this back to you next week with the correct times, places, and things. And we'll go over it again. So this is what it is right now, but we have an opportunity to review it again next week. Particularly if you take a look at the calendar, and I'm sorry, Ron, I have no idea why you don't have it, but I will get it to you. That shows you what committee meets, what time it meets, and what day. So like it says first and third Wednesday, or, whatever. Okay.
So just a
Yes.
question, since we're looking at this list.
Yep.
What about other positions? Chairs, members, things like that. When does
Okay.
that stuff get addressed?
On some of those things, because they are members, I did not put it on the agenda as members. It was on as liaison appointments. So next week, it's on the agenda for membership and representatives for the ones that we were not able to do tonight.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to
No,
I
that's
just wanted
good.
to point that out.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Excellent. Okay. G,
Yeah.
I do have 48-hour business, which I will bring
And-
up. Well, there's the list. I was asked yesterday by Elise Leduc Fleming, who's the executive director of the Wareham Land Trust, if we would be able to sign off on basically a work authorization form. You did get a copy of the form later today, and you also got a copy of the map and the proposed trail arrangement that the Land Trust is applying for a grant for. There is a conservation restriction on the land, and in order to have them do work on it, there has to be the signature of the chair of the Board of Selectmen of the holder, which is the town of Wareham. So I sent you what Miss Leduc Fleming sent to me, and I can call her. She's in a meeting of the Wareham Land Trust right now, but I can call her if you have any questions of her. If not, I would ask that you authorize me to sign the conservation restriction work authorization form for the Wareham Land Trust Stony Run Trail design. And it has not been funded or anything. They are in the process of applying for grants. Mr. Sullivan, do you choose to speak?
Yeah, Judy, how should I phrase this? I have an issue with the parking lot. That is way too fast of an area for it to be there. It's kind of something we talked about. So if they can push it as far further down as possible, I obviously don't want to hurt the land trust in their endeavor to make this a usable property. It's just the closer they are to that intersection, the closer we are to having some serious issues.
Okay. I know that you had that issue, and I know that Mr. Minot also had that question, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't think that this just allows them to create the application, and the application would be very specific. And I would think that I'm sure that they would work with us to address those concerns. I know that Ms. Leduc Fleming told me that she would.
Yeah, so apologize, Madam Chair, but you were basically asking for endorsement of the design, which is my concern.
Oh, okay. So your concern is that okay, I see what you're saying. Your concern is that the parking lot is where it shouldn't be. And
Yeah,
yeah.
As far down as possible. And then just a reminder, those are people's homes across the street. So something we need to consider. So.
Well, I'm sure we could. I wish I could find a number now. I'm sure that we could change the concept.
Yeah, I mean, I'd put on the screen, but I think sharing's disabled right now.
Okay.
So if I read what the potential motion would have been, and if we can adjust that motion, maybe we can vote on it. So the initial motion would have been to move that this board authorize the chair to sign the conservation restriction work authorization form submitted by Wareham Land Trust, Inc. for the Stony Rain 600 Main Street Preserve. And can we do that, adding that the caveat is that the board and the administrator approve a replacement of the parking area?
Mr. Bowen, could you weigh in on that? Would that hold water?
I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, I'm not sure what the question is.
If we put a caveat on the motion to authorize me to sign that says that the parking lot basically has to be moved.
Well, it's not really an approval, is it?
No.
That's an open-ended contingency.
Yeah,
I guess my question is, does this need to be done right now?
they have a deadline, an application deadline of Monday, which is why I had to bring it forth under 48-hour business.
Okay,
Let me see if I can get her on the phone.
well, Madam Chairman, I think the answer is this. If you put that kind of contingency on, that's fine. But if the contingency isn't met, the town will withdraw from the matter.
I hear your concerns and I don't know how to address that. Because the application is really a work authorization form, and what was submitted was the thing that you all got, although Mr. Sullivan can't screen share it. You all got a copy of it, and it does show the parking lot. And I know that the parking lot and a crosswalk to the nursing home is a major concern. Hang on. Let me see if I can get one of these gals on the phone. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm having issues with, they've allowed it, but it's different for me. It's asking me for system preferences. It's not showing my desktop like usual. So I'm gonna log into my Zoom account, see what I can do.
I mean, I think I can call Nancy or Kathy. I don't have Elisa's phone number.
Judy at least left you her phone number. Did you weren't able to get it? Hold on.
Elise will be joining us on the meeting, so give her a few minutes to get on, okay? What else have we got to do? Town administrators report. Let's go to that while we wait. We'll put that one on the back burner for the moment.
Yeah, you won't move forward with anything. I don't have anything for you, Judy. So
Okay. Initiative or liaison reports, Mr. Slavin.
Okay, let's see what we got. Today was basically State Day, Mass Municipal Association. Local Government Advisory Council, Mass Selectmen Association. If you give me a second here, I'll pull up some of the stuff we have. Senate today finally worked on their budget for 2023. The House had done theirs. There's a bunch of areas. Everybody got a copy of the overall information, including the town administrator and several other department heads, etc. There's not a bunch of changes from what the House put forward. The House has a little more in one area than less than others, and Chapter 90, which directly affects us for roads, really hasn't got much of a change at all. There is some more money coming from the ARPA and CARES thing that has to be taken care of. It's a matter of going ahead and getting them in. I think we have until 2026 if we submit things to get the projects done by and spend the money. But we have to spend it within a certain time frame. It has to be reported. And let's see what else we have. If you want to go up to Middleborough, there's some major work going on the new MBTA station in Middleborough, which will replace the Lakeville station, which will be our connecting point if we are fortunate enough to get commuter rail. So that will be there also. Yesterday, I met with Bridgewater State University with 3 of their people there, plus Jeff Walker from Serped. And Serped has initiated a program with the school for interns. And the reason this is important is we're constantly having problems in the whole Southeast region, probably all Massachusetts, finding people to be, town administrators, assistant town administrators, people basically getting trained to move into those positions down the line, finance managers, planning directors in that whole field, special services, GIS, etc. So the school has decided to work with Serped, and this is something I've initiated, to come up with an intern program, usually mostly the graduate school students, to provide possible interns for the 27 communities in Southeast Mass. Plus Serpent itself will also be hiring people. This program should have long-term benefits and hopefully have stability where we have students that are trained in our area, can stay in our area, because these jobs are not only just good paying jobs, they're good long-term jobs if it's done right. So it's an important piece also. Planning board met last night, and the Bay Point issue with the pump station, et cetera, is still going on. I believe there one more meeting, they should finally get all this done and taken care of. The Crumpet Factory with Henry Diseases, it was okay last night, so he's finally up and he'll be running shortly as well. And I think that's it. Well, somebody else.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Leduc Fleming is with us now, and good evening, and thank you for joining us. Mr. Sullivan and I have questions. I guess the board does too, as well. For the conservation restriction work authorization form, the main concern is the location of the parking lot and the crosswalks. Mr. Sullivan, do you choose to reiterate your questions or comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. If you, where the parking lot is, just people fly around this corner here, coming from both directions. Those taking a left, trying to escape through traffic, and those fully pulling. That parking lot area, I'd like to see it, if possible, moved as far down the street as possible. And just to avoid that, because that is such a high speed, high traffic. I know we were really concerned about this area, but down here's where I'm really concerned if we don't get it over there. So and I
Right,
did,
so
yeah,
Hang on one second, let him finish, please.
yeah. And I didn't think, Judy, you'd mentioned something about sidewalks and stuff, and I don't think we're doing that. I don't think that's part of this anymore.
Okay, I thought a crosswalk was, but okay. Elise, can you answer the?
right, so I'll answer the crosswalk sidewalk comment first. It was an idea that some of our board members had considered as a nice addition to this overall project. I did float the idea to Ken Buckland and Dave Menard and didn't really get positive feedback. There was comments about expense and difficulty, and it just seemed like it was a lot of planning that the town didn't want to take on right now. But that would it's not a requirement. None of our other conservation areas or even most of the town's conservation areas don't have crosswalks and sidewalks going to them. We just thought, given the proximity to the nursing home, it would be nice to have a safe way to get from point A to point B, given how dangerous that intersection actually is. That said, we don't want to discount that as a future possibility, but we don't want the design of a crosswalk and a safe crossing signal to eliminate the possibility of us moving forward with the trail design right now. So this could function. The parking lot could be used by other visitors in the community. There could be shuttles from the rehabilitation center to the parking lot, getting even folks, the residents of that nursing home there safely, not having them walk or wheel down the street. So the first step would, before a crosswalk was even getting you anywhere, would be to create this. Right now, this is just a forest and a wetland, and there's no way to access the property. When the property was acquired in 2018, it was acquired with the goal of putting trails and public access specifically for ADA access in the property. And we just want to move the part of it forward that we as the land trust have some control over. We don't actually have any control over the crossings and the road. It was just a bigger discussion we wanted to open up with the town. I had floated to Ken that as part of the study that we're hoping to do to design and plan this, we could have potentially had a traffic study or a crosswalk study feasibility as part of that, but I didn't get any positive feedback from the town staff. So given the deadline of this particular grant, I wanted to move forward with the part of it that was on our own property.
So can you address the parking lot, please?
Yes, so with respect to the parking lot, it can probably shift a little bit farther to the west, but not all the way to the stream. At that point, you're basically putting it in the river and in the wetland. So to keep it, to satisfy Conservation Commission constraints, they're going to want us to have it as far east as possible. To satisfy traffic constraints, you're going to want to have us moved as far west as possible. I think the best we can do is to shift it slightly to the west from where it's shown on this graphic. You'll notice, you can even see from the picture that the trees get a lot more dense, maybe another parking lot's width to the west. Our goal is to keep as many of the mature trees as possible, and where that parking lot is conceptually sited right now is a relatively clear area where we wouldn't have to remove any trees. And that was another part, part of having a conservation restriction on a conservation land owned by the land trust is to uphold the conservation values of that property. We want to do as little clearing as possible with this project. So I hear your concern, Derek, and this, again, the figure in this drawing is conceptual only. We haven't engaged the engineers. They're going to do a study to see where it makes most sense from a lot of different perspectives, and traffic will be one of them. And we can certainly, I know we had planned to have site walks and site visits with Dave Pichette from the Conservation Commission and potentially any of the other Conservation Commission members who want to come to make sure that the trail siting is fine before we finalize it for permitting. But we could even have some initial feasibility conversations with the selectmen and with Derek to make sure that, these other concerns are worked out. But right now, this is very conceptual. Just as we do need a parking lot to even think about having a trail system, and it has to go somewhere.
So Elise, this is Tricia.
Excuse me, you have to
Excuse
go
me.
through me. Okay,
Uh,
Derek,
um,
does that answer your questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more concerned about public safety, so I'd be more concerned about the police and Menard than I would with Mr. Pichette and the trails. And I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm more, I would love to see it on the other side of that copse of trees, if possible. Basically where it says Main Street, and I know we're going within where the Stony Run is. I drive that section a lot, and I see what happens there. So
I absolutely hear you. I do think that would actually be prohibited under the Wetlands Protection Act, because we have a 200-foot riverfront that we have to work around in terms of permitting constraints. And so on some level, it's going to have public access, and we want to make it as safe as possible. But it's essentially, I mean, there are driveways to the east of where we're proposing, and access is available from their driveway. I want to make this as safe as possible too, but there are lots of constraints within the site. All we're asking for tonight is the approval to apply for a grant to do a conceptual study and bring it through permitting. Nothing would get constructed under the grant cycle that we're currently going after, because there's just too many steps between design, engineering, and permitting that'll take us through the current grant cycle.
So what would, if you don't mind, what would the next steps be? And what if our police chief said, "Oh my God, that's a disaster"? What would the town's town be able to do on the next phase? Are we out of luck, or what's?
Elise?
I'm thinking, I don't, the problem is, it would depend on whether the Conservation Commission was willing to budge on letting us move to the west. So there's multiple entities from town having conflicting desires. And I think ultimately we're going to end up in the middle. So hopefully we can move up to and potentially a little bit into that copse of trees. I don't see it possible for us to move on the west side of that copse of trees where it actually says Main Street. From a conservation standpoint, it's just not permittable. Because the wetlands shown in this figure are from the statewide data set that's created from like an aerial photograph. This site hasn't been field delineated. That would happen as part of this project, but I've been out on the site, and the wetland, that green grassy shape in the middle does extend farther north than what's shown there. It's wider than just the stream itself towards the end of the road. So it's just, there's a lot of wetland constraints, and it's environmentally sensitive to keep the parking lot as far east as possible. We can certainly shift it farther to the west, but not all the way to the stream crossing.
So so I guess my question would be, does this proposed map go with your application?
It goes with the application in the sense that it shows the Mass Trails grants folks that we've thought about it. I can certainly move the parking lot indicator for the grant purposes to at least the edge of the conifer trees that are shown there, if that would make the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator feel more comfortable with this application. But ultimately, this is, as mentioned in the legend, there's a little asterisk that says this design is going to be refined as the part of the project. The whole project is to design the project. So certainly my quick figure isn't the final plan.
Mr. Bowen, I guess we go back to the original question, which has now been complicated by Mr. Sullivan adding in the police chief, or, Mr. Minot or somebody like that. If we were to sign this authorization form to allow the work, what binds the work? The concept or the ultimate design that is submitted?
Well, with your permission, Madam Chairman, it's
Please.
very difficult to deal with something like this on a less than 48-hour notice. It's plainly a complex issue. There are a lot of different moving parts, but we're left to deal with it as best we can. As I understand it, and if someone can correct me if I'm wrong, all that the applicant is asking for is your endorsement of a grant application. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the grant application is specifically for the design, engineering, and permitting.
And so, as a practical matter, Madam Chairman, you could probably put whatever conditions you want on the approval for the grant application, but I don't see what it gets you. What you're really dealing with right now is a political question as to whether the applicant wishes to commit to you to work towards a particular policy that you might happen to desire. Whether or not that commitment is made is up to the applicant. Whether or not you accept the representations made is up to you. At the end of the day, the only thing the applicant is looking for is your endorsement of the application so they can do their, get money to do their studies with Horsley Witten. And that's all you're at. That's the only point you're at. You have a leverage point. Well, how you choose to use it or whether you choose to use it is up to you. And then the rest will play out when the applicant looks for curb cuts. That'll be a matter for Mr. Menard and perhaps the road commissioners. The location of parking lots or trails, that'll be a matter for the Conservation Commission. So you have your point of leverage here. What you do with it is up to you. After that, it's in the hands of everyone else except for you.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz, you had questions or comments?
And I apologize for speaking out of space, out of alignment, Ms. Chairman. Actually, some of the stuff that I was thinking about has been addressed here and in this further conversation. And my question was about whether or not this was a grant for design implementation or simply to look at design. And I think we've got that answer.
Ms. Fleming, do you choose to answer that question directly, please?
Yes, I can answer that again. Again, this is simply for design, engineering, and permitting. No construction, no implementation would take place under this grant round. We would need to seek additional funding in order to implement any of this.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Excuse me, Ms. Wertz?
It does. Elise, I would like you to repeat the phrase simply for design, blank, and permitting. What was
Design,
that?
engineering, and
Engineering.
permitting. So
Thank
the
you.
engineering of the parking lot itself, making sure that the ADA accessible boardwalk from the parking lot to the wetland view platform is appropriate and engineered correctly. The view platform itself and the footbridge would all require engineering well beyond the scale of what the land trust can do ourselves. The natural surface woodland trails throughout the rest of the property are more typical of the work that we do in-house. But I appreciate having a outside consultant looking at the whole project to make sure it all fits together and creates as accessible a property as possible.
Thank you. You all set, Ms. Wertz?
Yeah, so I think there's a possibility, and help me correct my wording. This is my first go around. That we could.
Okay, I need to have the other gentlemen see if they have questions or concerns
First,
before you
so-
make a motion.
go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Slavin? Oh, you're not there. How about Mr. Bessie? Go ahead. Questions,
yeah, so-
comments, concerns?
Yeah, so the only, I guess the only question or comment, and it's strictly conservation related. And talking about moving the parking lot to the other side of those cluster of trees, I know you had mentioned it would be within the 200-foot riverfront. But is that not something that you could apply to the commission for a waiver to not have to abide by that 200-foot riverfront restriction?
May I answer that, Ms. Chirper?
Yes, please.
You can always request a waiver. In general, Conservation Commission should not accept that or issue a permit over a waiver if there are other alternatives. So usually the waivers require multiple contingencies. One is that there are no other reasonable alternatives. One is that there's a greater public benefit. It's possible. And that could be maybe as parts of early stages of this project. There are some initial conversations with the main departments, the Conservation Commission, the municipal maintenance, the emergency services, to see, how is everyone feeling before the engineers go too far down this road, only to find that it's completely unacceptable to everybody. So we could have some initial town conversations early on in the design process before we even get to the point of permitting. You don't want to get to a permit and then change everything. You want to make sure everybody's on board with your plan before that. I like open and frequent communication early in the process with all permitting bodies.
Thank
No,
you.
I
Is that
I
also-
agree. I agree 100%. I mean, I just think that, one of the biggest concerns obviously is public safety, with the parking lot where it is. And, that might, I'm not saying that would be taken into consideration, but it could be taken into consideration as not really a viable place to put a parking lot, if public safety was definitely, of foremost importance. But
Thank
thank
you.
you for your response.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick?
So I've looked at probably 4 different applications on my phone for maps, aerial views over the last couple minutes of this. How big is the parking lot? How many cars are they planning for it?
Miss,
I-
yes, please.
It's undetermined at this point, so that would be part of the design. My preference, if it could fit somewhere, would be to have 4 to 6 spots and have at least two of them be handicap designated. But again, that all of that is not, we're not there yet in the design.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick?
Okay.
That's it?
I have nothing else. Honestly, I think it looks good. I've been looking at the other things. It'll be very interesting to see when they do have the final plans out for it.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin?
The area where they want to put the parking lot, if anybody who drives that area, you have people coming down off of the other part of Main Street and Tremont Street there, taking turns in to go down that street or come up, from Hathaway, et cetera. There's a traffic at very high speed through there. It's extremely narrow, among other things. People are rushing to get up to the intersection, making the turn at the intersection, and going through quickly to bypass traffic. I'm going to say that you're not going to be happy with it. That's a terrible location for having any kind of crosswalk across or to have any kind of parking lot in that particular spot. You're going to have to find something that's, I'm not sure how, because you can't blow it up enough to look at it, but I don't see how that's going to work from a safety standpoint. I would never want to sign off as a police chief on that particular spot there, knowing how the traffic is there. I would think that maybe there's something, again, I have to go walk the property, look down at the far end there and see. I know how they've designed this with a accessible boardwalk and everything else there. If you look closely, they're putting the parking lot here and they've got a couple of dots, which means they'll have a little trail or something to pick up and be accessible right from that spot there. And that's how it's designed. But it's not a good location for the parking area. I kind of wish we had a way of working with the people who own the property at the corner all the way up there, because right at the top itself, it's where things slow down or are more easy to get in and out of there. But on the west end, what I call the west end, which is where the footbridge end, it would work out a lot better.
Thank you.
So I'm not happy with the parking lot piece. For my planning board experiences, that wouldn't work for me at all.
Thank you. I have the same concerns about the parking lot. And I understand the conservation value of, maintaining the wetlands as they are. I think it's a great concept. And I'm not sure how we get there. Ms. Fleming, let me ask you one more time, I guess, because I'm sure we've asked you this 6 times. If the board authorizes me to sign this document, which is the work authorization form, and you commit to find an agreeable location for the parking lot that is agreeable to the public safety, as well as our municipal maintenance, as well as conservation, could you live with that?
Yes, I think that's it's probably the only way we could move forward with this. And that would all happen as part of the initial design phases, as part of the scoped project that would be under this grant. And I think having a a meeting or two or more, whatever it takes, with the key municipal players would be very helpful in finding that medium ground. Like I said, obviously we don't want it all the way to one side for safety, even though that would be perfect for conservation. And we don't want it all the way to the other side for conservation, even though that'd be the best for safety. And so coming up with where everybody would be comfortable with the parking lot in the middle of the road frontage that we have, it's more than 500 feet of road frontage. So hopefully there's a space along there somewhere that can bring comfort to everybody. This is not set in stone. I am happy to shift that parking lot farther to the west. I just can't tell you how far west without going through part of our study. And we can't do our study without your approval for us to go after this grant. So we're in a little bit of a catch-22. And I do apologize for the lateness in me coming to you, but the person from Horsley Witten I'd been working with basically told me in no terms could he have this ready in time. And he just told me yesterday that he could have it to me this week and we could probably get our grant in on Monday. So I'm sort of playing catch up myself at this point to write the whole application.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
if
please,
I
Mr.
may.
Sullivan.
I don't, first thing, nobody understands the deadlines and trying to, the things that push them to the last minute. So it's obviously, I think that's perfectly understandable. Ms. Fleming, and this is the Wareham Land Trust. If they say they'll work with us, I believe they will. So they're a great organization within the town. I just wanted to make sure the concerns were addressed. It's something, and obviously they've already taken some steps with hearing us beforehand. So, I'd like to see, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe community preservation funds are involved in the purchase. I'm going to guess at some point with some of the grants and stuff we may be requested to come forward. So I do believe that this is a community amenity. I just want to make sure it's a safe one.
Thank you. And I agree with you 100%. I think it's a really nice idea. I think it's a great property for a really nice idea. And I would hate to not allow you to go forward with the design process. And I just want to Mr. Sullivan said it perfectly. Yes, we know who you are and we know who the land trust is, and we believe, what you say you will do. So is there any further discussion or comments from any of my board members? Well, I'll ask for a motion then.
So I'll make a motion, and let me word this as we go along. Help me with it where I need to change it. I move that this board authorize the chair to sign the conservation restriction work authorization form submitted by Wareham Land Trust, Inc. for a step for design, engineering, and permitting a site at Stony Run, 600 Main Street Preserve.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go. Hearing none.
I would like to add that the parking issue will need to be resolved somewhere down the line. You got to have something in there about that.
Okay, so can we tag that onto your motion, please, Ms. Wertz, that the parking?
So that the work for design, engineering, and permitting for the Stony Run 600 Main Street Preserve, including an evaluation and confirmation of an agreeable parking area.
Does that, Mr. Slavin, are you willing to second that?
Second that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Mr. Bessie.
Yes.
Mr. Slavin.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay. The document will be available for you tomorrow in the Board of Selectmen's office, Ms. Fleming.
Thank you very much. And
And
thank you very much for your time and for calling me in when, when appropriate.
that's fine. We, just so that my board knows, this will be on our agenda next week for a confirmatory vote. Because we brought it up under 48-hour business, I must do that. So we won't be changing our vote, but we will be confirming the vote. Okay?
Ms. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't think we ever voted to open the conversation.
You don't need to do that.
Okay,
Thank you. We're all set, Ms. Fleming. Thank you very much for joining us. I
All right.
appreciate
Thank you for
it.
having me. And thank you again for your time. Have a good night.
You as well. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Town Administrator, you said you didn't have anything for us?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Slavin, were you done with your liaison reports, sir?
Yeah, first new meeting for the board. We don't have to go all the details tonight.
What?
Don't need to go through all the details of what happened tonight,
Okay.
as far as my meetings go.
Oh, yeah, okay. Mr. Bessie, liaison reports, probably none.
None tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chadwick, ditto? Liaison
Yeah, I don't
reports?
have any tonight.
Okay. Ms.
No.
Wertz, any liaison reports?
none tonight.
Okay, thank you. I do have one that I'd like to report on. The Minot Forest Committee did vote to name 3 trails in the Minot Forest. And they've been named after citizens of the town of Wareham who dedicated an enormous amount of time for the forest, to the forest, and to our open spaces. One of the trails will be named after Marjorie Teitelbaum, who was a graduate of Wareham High School, had a degree in botany, and then went to earn her master's degree in education from Bridgewater and became an assistant professor of education at Bridgewater. She was a long-term advocate for conservation issues, and she began as serving as a member of the town of Wareham Minot Forest Committee. She also was on the Wareham, she was the Wareham delegate to the Plymouth Carver Aquifer Advisory Committee, as well as on the Open Space and Community Preservation Committees, and a member of the Plymouth County Cranberry Quilters. She also owned her own mining business. And one of the trails will be named after her. Second trail will be named after Donald Hall, who also was a graduate of Wareham High School and received his BA from Boston University and a master's in education from the University of New Mexico. He taught Spanish and social studies in several different places. He was a long-term member of conservation and open space and much missed by many of his friends. And the last trail will be named after Ann Campbell. Ann Campbell was a member of the open space before WCTV was involved, or maybe through WCTV. She helped film town meetings. She organized candidates nights. She was on the Oak Grove School Association, the OBA, the Onset Protective League, and the Spinney Memorial Library. Very much missed and very active in community needs. So those are the 3 trails. The committee actually is having signs, trailhead signs made up for each of those individuals. And I think that's great. And that's all I have. So we're done with liaison initiative reports. We have no other bills and documents. You were all able to sign either in person or online the warrants, at least 3 of you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And then the last item to come before us would be the reorganization of this board. Before we do that, I want to point out that this meeting may have looked a little bit rough around the edges. And that is to be expected with 3 brand new members. And I congratulate all of you for doing what you should be doing and paying attention throughout the meeting and going through me as the chair. It's a lot to learn, as we all know, and I think we all did fine tonight. And I just want to say thank you. Ms. Wertz went to a lot of trouble to script the meeting tonight, because I had warned her that I thought she probably would be made the clerk pro tem. So, Mr. Slavin?
Okay, item number 12.
Reorganization of the board.
Okay, again, everybody knows that my feelings from a couple of years ago when we went out of sequence of how we did things for quite a few years. In this case here, we're in an unusual situation with, again, we have 3 brand new members, and it takes a year to 2 years to get any kind of comfort at all what's going on. In theory, I think people would probably say, well, Ellen, why aren't you stepping up and being chair or clerk, whatever. I basically have taken on a lot of responsibility for 4 other organizations in the state, county, and region, which takes a lot of my time. And to be fair to everybody, including the town, I really can't take on more responsibility than what I do right now. So my thought right now, which goes against what I fought for a couple of years ago, really, is I think for the safety of the town, for the best in our current situation, that Mrs. Whiteside, if she doesn't, if she's willing to step up and be chair for 1 more year, and probably I think it's best if Mrs. Wertz basically steps up to be clerk for this year, simply because she would have the time to do the clerk's job. And the clerk's job basically is to come into town hall, besides the chair, look at the paperwork going on and making sure when it comes to town meeting, the board members have everything that they need and everything's in place and goes smoothly. I have a tendency to push a little bit of tonight's meeting, trying to make sure we pick up for the loss of everything that's in place before. So for that, I apologize, but I'm just trying to make life easier for everybody. I believe that both Jared and Ron in the following year, one of them could also step up and move into the next position. And then after that, it's not unusual for new selectmen to have to wait 3 years, sometimes 4, before they become chair. But I believe everybody should have a chance at it. It's a unique experience. It has a lot of pluses, but it sure has a lot of minuses. If you haven't got gray hair now, you'll have it there later.
Or
So,
no hair.
or no hair in my case. So my recommendation would be, and again, I would ask Ron and Jared if they're comfortable with this or not, they can speak up, but I'd like to see Mrs. Whiteside stay for 1 more year. She's willing as chair. And I think ask Ms. Wertz to step up as clerk, if it's acceptable to the board.
Is that your motion, sir?
That's my suggestion, yes.
Is it a motion?
It'll be a motion as long as the board agrees that that's okay.
I'm going to
with
go
it.
around the room. I'm going to ask for a second so that it can be discussed.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chadwick, do you care to address his sort of motion?
I think it makes perfect sense. You have 2 new younger people that are still working full-time jobs, and you have Trisha's experience above us, so it makes sense to have her in the clerk. And Judith, you've done a good job running as the. Am I frozen?
Yeah, well, you sort of blurpily. Your voice is difficult.
Is it not working?
No, it's
Okay.
your voice cracking up. Go ahead.
All right. Yes, I agree with Mr. Slavin on that. I think Trish should, Ms. Wertz would be perfect in the position for clerk. And Madam Chairman Whiteside, I would like to see you as the chairman still.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie, do you choose to make a comment or question?
I'll see if I don't break up as much as Mr. Chadwick. But I do agree. I do agree with Mr. Slavin on Trisha going into the clerk's role. I think her experience with stuff that she's been doing in town especially as of late, and dedicating a lot of her time to, doing a lot of research and studies. And she would be a fine fit for that position. And I do agree with keeping Ms. Whiteside as the chair. Although, we may have time to dedicate to it, I think that we're too young in infancy of understanding policies, procedures, and what have you, that I think, taking at least a year to really understand the inner workings of the board and how we operate would be to the betterment of the town, and not put any potential issues at risk and making missteps because we don't know exactly how things should be done. So I would second and third and fourth that motion from Mr. Slavin to reorganize the board as such.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz?
Yep. I mean, this is like, you never see me speechless very often, so enjoy it. I'm a believer that I adventure through life, and for some reason, I have adventured into becoming very involved with this town that I've been in since I've been a child, and I'm enjoying it, and I will try and do my absolute best for you as clerk, if that's what we voted. And Ms. Whiteside, I've watched you lead meetings. I've watched you just recently make sure I understand what I'm doing. I appreciate that. I've gotten to know you, especially through my WRA work. And I think we could work very well together if I were serving as your clerk.
Thank you. I must say that when I asked Ms. Wertz if she would step up to be clerk, Alan just plain doesn't have, Mr. Slavin doesn't have the time. And because the other two gentlemen do work full time, and one of them is actually starting a new business, it really wouldn't be fair to them to put the paperwork burden on them right now. The learning curve for all three of you, I think, is going to be pretty steep, and that's not meant to be a criticism at all. But I think that you have proven, you and I went over this agenda in depth.
Yeah.
And you were able to catch up with all of the things that were changing today. And so that's great. It shows me that you will be a very good clerk. So I will now call for a motion.
Do I have to make it?
No.
So I would make a motion to reorganize the board in such as Ms. Wertz to be the clerk and Ms. Whiteside to continue as chairman.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Is there any further discussion for the motion? Roll call vote. Mr. Chadwick?
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
Yes.
Mr. Bessie?
Yes.
Ms. Wertz?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you very much. Done. Okay, now there is a tradition that you may or may not know about, and that is that the motion to adjourn is always made by Mr. Slavin, unless he's not with us.
Almost.
As Mr. Sullivan started to say, motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I caught that little cutie. Mr. Slavin?
I just did, you missed it, motion to adjourn again.
Second.
And it is not debatable. I will go around the room, please. Mr. Chadwick?
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
Yes.
Mr. Bessie?
Yes.
Ms. Wertz?
Yes.
And myself, yes, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention this evening. We got a lot done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.